let's talk about situations where vices are not as big of a deal. Well, people think they're a big deal, but you're, normally like, the court's not really going to care too much about that. I would say typically where there's not children involved, most of these things that we're talking about, unless there's a ton of money spent, I don't know the courts are going to pay as much mind to it. I mean, there might be a little bit of shift of percentage, 52-48, 53-47, maybe 55-45 if you're lucky on a property division. But I mean, if there's no children involved and you're, I don't know, having affairs, but you're not spending a lot of money on it, I don't know that the court's going to really nail your hide to the wall. I mean, quite frankly.
Yeah, I agree with you, brother. And that's really a trend that's changed over time. Before, in Texas, obviously we're no fault divorce state. And when people hear that, they're like, what does that mean? Well, it just means that you can get divorced for any reason. She burnt my toast. She woke up and she wears glasses and I decided I don't like glasses. His hair is turning gray. He's got a
soup stain. He's got a soup stain on his tie.
Done.
Whatever.
Don't have to have a reason. But there is fault as well, right? You can allege and assert fault if you're willing to prove it. And when you talk about vices or these types of issues, to your point, I would say that, like spending money, definitely time. There are a lot of people now that like with guns. We've talked a lot about guns. You're a gun guy. I'm a gun guy. And, you're like, hey, they're not cheap. So you invest some money, you've got gun safes, you've got ammo. And, you go to court and they're like, hey, they're going to use this against me. I have tons of clients who come in and they're like, I have a mini arsenal, I've got tons of stuff. And she's never really been a gun person, or he's never been a gun person. And she owns all the weapons. And she's like, I want to keep them with me. And the guy's like, well, I don't want any guns around my kids. Is that going to be something? Courts kind of look at that and they're like, no, unless you're going to tell me that there's, family violence issues or, you're entitled to own them, or if you're looking at it in like this shopping vice, right? People want to say like she spends so much money and she's not going to, she's going to spend it on getting her hair done, or he's going to spend it on his car, not spend it on my kids. The courts kind of look at you and go, guess what? You're entitled to spend your money however you want to, as long as it gets you provided for.
I had a lady one time just swearing up and down, he spends so much money on these hunting trips. He spends money hand over fist, this and that. And did he spend a lot? They didn't have any kids. Did he spend a lot of money on hunting trips? Absolutely. He spent a lot and we're talking $100,000, on hunting trips over the course of, 4 or 5 years. I mean, a lot of money. He went to all kinds of exotic places to hunt and do different things. So, I mean, this guy, spent some cheddar on this stuff. But then we looked over at wife, who was complaining up and down that he's wasting and diminishing the community estate, doing all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. So we looked at her purse and shoe collection. And the purse and shoe collection over the course of over a number of years. I mean, this lady had, Chanel bags. She had,
Balenciagas,
all this stuff.
Christian Louboutins and all that good stuff.
Goyard and all these, Christian Louboutin shoes. And I mean, she had probably $100,000 worth of shoes and handbags and jewelry that she had accumulated over that same amount of time. So is that a vice on him? Sure. But wait a minute, she is spent, I mean, he's going to get no use or benefit out of a pair of size 7 Christian Louboutin shoes.
He can pass them on. You're like, hey, sweetie.
He's not going to get a lot of benefit out. This particular guy wasn't going to get a lot of benefit out of a Louis Vuitton purse or anything. So,
yeah. And the only other thing I would add to that is that, a lot of times, we talk about waste as attorneys, right? So if you can categorize it as waste, well, what is that, right? It's like
I've had a devil of a time getting waste claims to stick over the course of, of 20 years. I mean, the best example of getting one to stick would probably be a guy that spent $250,000 on a stripper. I mean, that on the same stripper that he would go to every week.
It's definitely waste.
That's waste. I mean, she likes to shop a lot. Isn't going to get you there, I don't think.
Well, I will tell you, I had a case, and I'll give you this as, kind of the Good Samaritan rule is what I used to call it, or still call it. But I had a client that I represented, and the spouse had been giving away substantial amounts of money. I mean, substantial amounts of money. And, being philanthropic, that's great. I think everybody in the world wants that and encourages it. Unless you look at it and you say, let's evaluate where that money is being given to. Is it really a good cause? She's giving, $5,000 a whack to someone in Nigeria who turns out
Nigerian
is
prince?
not actually, a Nigerian prince who said, I'm going to return $50,000 for a $5,000 investment, and, she was taking money from this family trust to be able to pay this money that was creating these waste claims. And so the court was very concerned about that, because once we were able to delve into where this money was going, it wasn't like she was donating to the Catholic Church or the Baptist Church or, the Salvation Army, something that, had some legitimacy to it. Even though it was altruistic in her mind, she was like, I'm trying to help people. The court really delved into, is this waste, and did compensate the estate back for some of the money that, not all of it, but for some of the money that she disposed of that way. So, it doesn't always have to be something bad that a court can look at, but I will agree with you 100%, Bryan. It's harder and harder now to get courts to even want to recognize that. They just kind of like, hey, it's money under the bridge. People get to spend it how they spend it, and then when you get divorced, we're going to divide.
And it's very tough to get a reconstituted estate. Because especially when parties are dealing with limited finances and the money's already been spent. If you've got additional money or you've got investments, and that's where those reconstituted estate claims can be useful and helpful, and they can help you, recoup some of that money. But if the money's gone and the parties don't have it anymore, zero, half a zero is still zero, right, Sam?
Last time I checked. I mean, new math may have changed that, but back in the old style math, that was the result. And I would just add as a cautionary tale for anybody. We're talking about these vices and making fun of them, but I know when you're out there and you're in a situation and you look at it and you say, God, this is just extremely frustrating, or it's causing a lot of grief in my life, regardless of what the vice is that you think either that you have it or that you're someone else in your relationship has it. I would tell you, like, don't wait. Okay. The longer that you endure that, the less it's going to matter to a court, because
Right.
The more that you say, hey, you know what, wife, I don't mind so much that you always are hooking up with guys from your past, or husband, I don't mind that you go to the strip club all the time and drop thousands of dollars, and it happens for months and then years. And then you want to come back in and say, well, that's a huge waste. Courts really look at you and say, I feel like you acquiesced to that a long time ago. It'd be different if
that's a great point, because if you go along and get along for such a long period of time, and you've known about it, caveat emptor, right? I mean, buyer beware at that point.
Absolutely.
You already know, you kind of waive your right to claim, that you're wronged by that if you've let it go and let it go and let it go, and then you've implied to your spouse that it's okay, like a shopping thing. Well, you wait 5 years and tell your divorce attorney, well, I couldn't stand that she started spending $5,000 a month shopping. Well, you never said anything about it for 4 years and 11 months. So, and that was happening every month, and you never did anything about it. You never said anything about it. What's done is done at that point.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that back.
He's 10 years into hunting trips or, building classic cars. And now all of a sudden you're like, I hated that hobby, and that's why I'm divorcing him, and I want all that money back. Good luck.
And you can divorce him for the classic cars, but you can't necessarily get the money back, because, you're allowed to spend your money on the things that you enjoy doing. Thankfully. I mean, when you're married, obviously every marriage makes compromises, right? Compromises love's secret ingredient, right?
Brother, we all have a boss. We all got a boss we got to report to.
Like I said, compromise is love's secret ingredient. But at the same time, you're allowed to spend money on the things that make you happy. If reading books makes you happy, if having the occasional drink or going to the horse track makes you happy, then you're allowed to spend the money that you make doing the things that you want to do. So, I mean, I think even if you're making a claim that he's got a vice of going to the horse track and he loses all this money, if it's a situation where he's lost $100 a month for 5 years, I don't think a court's going to care. If he's bankrupting the house and you're about to fall into bankruptcy and the kids are starving to death and he's still going to the horse track, that's another thing. So you got to temper these quote unquote vices with a little bit of common sense and rationality, I think, in some instances.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly, brother. I mean, I definitely think that you hit the nail on the head.
Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the Top Texas Lawyers podcast. If you would like a consultation with either Bryan or Sam, please call 1-888-981-7509 or visit us on the web at astxlegal.com. Once again, that's astxlegal.com. Thank you very much.